Bridgeport, USA. A very American place. A part of the United States for 100 years. A place with a rich culture, as rich as the cultures of California or Texas or Florida. A place where the people value their American citizenship. A place where people believe in constitutional freedom. A place where citizens dream the American dream. This rich port, by its Spanish name, is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, USA. A territory acquired by the United States 100 years ago in 1898. A territory whose people, now numbering almost 4 million, were granted American citizenship more than 80 years ago in 1917. A territory whose people have fought and died in all the American wars since becoming American citizens. Yet, these American citizens cannot vote for President of the United States. These United States citizens have no vote in the Congress of the United States, although the Congress determines their future. Congress is now debating the issue of the future status of Puerto Rico. After significant development in the 1950s and 60s, the economy flattened and has been stagnant for the last 25 years. Investment capital is now flowing away from the island. The federal government collects no income taxes from Puerto Rico, a benefit Congress extended to the island since its residents have no American voting representation. You see, the congressional historians know what trouble was once stirred up in Boston by having taxation without representation. If Congress gives the Puerto Rican people a voice in a choice, it would be between three options: a continuation of Commonwealth status, or a change to independence or statehood. In plain pocketbook terms, the current status of Commonwealth costs U.S. taxpayers at least $10 billion per year and, unfortunately, tends to create dependency and stifle economic growth. Independence would cost a relatively small amount compared to Commonwealth, but it would require significant startup costs to establish a new spin-off nation. Statehood has become a viable option economically as well as politically. By eliminating the ambiguity of Puerto Rico's status and attaching it to the strength of the U.S. economy, it would provide the U.S. Treasury with a net gain, estimated by economists at about $2 billion annually. Many economists and business leaders have been studying these issues carefully and participating in discussions on the status of Puerto Rico in seminars across the country, from Washington, D.C. to San Jose, California, from Harvard to Stanford. At one such event at Stanford University, many of the issues were presented. One of the speakers at the luncheon seminar at the faculty club was J. Thomas Hexner, entrepreneur, economic growth analyst, and author of several economic studies on Puerto Rico.
The question is, what can one do? Or what are the status options, if you will, from an economic perspective? Independence, as has been said, only 4% of the people want it, so it's not really an option. Furthermore, it costs a lot of money to create a new country, and furthermore, given globalization and trade agreements that are about, I don't know what would happen to the people of Puerto Rico from an economic perspective if it became independent. The current status, I think, cannot continue because people just don't know what it is. The investors don't know what it is. This creates a situation where the local investors take their money and put it into Orlando. There are very few local investors that are trying to grow in Puerto Rico because there's no permanence. There's really a chance of change.
Some economists believe that one of the main reasons for Puerto Rico's economic stagnation might be found outside of the realm of economics. An economic analysis which helps explain this phenomenon is the convergence theory, which was presented at a seminar in Washington, D.C. by Fernando Lafort, a Chilean economist working at Harvard.
Let me start just stating the convergence hypothesis. Basically, what this hypothesis says is that poorer economies, other things being equal, and I'll try to explain what that means, will tend to grow faster than richer economies. And in this process, they will catch up. Okay? They will get closer in terms of per capita income or any other measure of economic performance to the richer economies. So if you have a group of economies that have more or less the same institutions and other things, you would expect to find that the poorer the economy is, the faster it's going to be growing in time. So at the end, they will be closer.
A simple example of the convergence theory in action is Hawaii after statehood. When that territory became a state in 1959, its economy improved dramatically and converged with the larger U.S. economy. In the case of Puerto Rico, however, even though it has had a similar close economic relationship with the United States and an even closer geographic connection, it is not converging. Therefore, the lack of convergence has to be attributed to a non-economic factor, such as lack of permanent status. Conversely, permanent status has been a powerful positive force for Hawaii. In the area of offshore investment, for example, you can see that there was a 5-fold increase in offshore firms establishing businesses in Hawaii after statehood. In the area of tourism, a major industry in Puerto Rico as well as in Hawaii, the tourism business increased 16-fold after statehood. Hawaii, an offshore island state of the United States, has become economically viable. Puerto Rico has great economic potential to do the same thing. Though there has been an economic stagnation in the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico in recent years, there's been significant progress in building the economic foundation that could support major development, if given the opportunity. Puerto Rico has moved from a centralized economy to a decentralized U.S. economic model, reflecting its natural affinity to the mainland. It has privatized utilities and other important sectors. Its workforce is educated and increasingly bilingual, especially at the important post-high school educational level. Puerto Rico is the most important port in its region and will be even more strategically important as the United States increases its trade with the Americas and with Caribbean basin nations. Its beaches are great places to relax and rejuvenate, but even more so, they are economic treasures for the healthy Puerto Rican tourism industry. The pleasant climate, as well as an openness to development, are positive factors which could help to lure lucrative foreign investment to the island if given the advantage of a secure, definable status. The task now is to define and select that status. The choices have been noted: Commonwealth, independence, or statehood. Puerto Ricans have the potential for economic development. They have the human and natural resources needed for success. They now need an unambiguous permanent political status. The Congress of the United States needs to define the terms within each option. And the 3.8 million American citizens of Puerto Rico need to make a choice.